Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. If you love cozy mysteries with a library theme, also books that are set in a small town, almost a village-like town, near a coastal area in the US, this is a series for you. In fact, the setting's not that important. The small town probably is, because the small town setting really encourages those characters to interact more with each other. But the library theme and the mystery element in a cozy mystery, if you like all those things in the same book, I encourage you to read this series. Even if you never read a library themed cozy mystery series before, give this a go because the characters are so great. One character in particular, Louise Jane, and I'll mention her probably a few times in this video because she's my favourite character and she's becoming my favourite character I've read in a book or a book series for quite some time. She's just an amazing character and I applaud the author, Eva Gates, for creating this character, and I just want Louise Jane to have her own series. Enough about Louise Jane for now. Let's get on talking about this book. It's called Spook in the Stacks. I've got the book here. Hopefully you can see the cover, that the light's not reflecting on it. This is another great book in this series. It's book 4 in the series. I've read 4 now. This is the last one I've read in the series, and I've loved each one. And they're getting stronger and stronger with each book. This book is amazing, and it's all because of Louise Jane. Let's get on with the plot. Well, the main plot is about this guy called Jay Ruddle, and he's coming into town, into Outer Banks, because he wants to find somewhere to donate his collection of historical documents. He's got this huge collection, and he doesn't want to be bothered with it anymore. So he wants to give it to a library or to a college, but somewhere where they've got someone qualified to look after it. And one of the places that he's looking at is the library in the Lighthouse in Outer Banks. And it doesn't matter about how big the library is, because part of the donation is some money as well to build a new facility to house these documents. And of course the facility will have the right kind of temperature and humidity control. And they've got someone there in the library already called Charlotte, who's an academic librarian. So she's qualified to look after these documents. So it's all plus signs to get the collection into our Outer Banks library. And it's the library we all love in this series. The other big storyline in this book, of course, involves my favourite character, Louise Jane. Louise Jane has been wanting to host this Halloween-themed event at the library, I think from book 1 in the series, and she's been on and on at people at the library board to get funding for it, and she got her funding, and now she's all gung-ho to get this Halloween-themed event on the road and happening. And it's not just one event. She's got a whole week of events, it seems, in this book. She's doing talks about ghosts, about spirits, about hauntings in the area, about how the library's haunted, much to the displeasure of Bertie, the head librarian, because Bertie doesn't want people to think the library's haunted. But Louise Jane is going all out to make this a huge event. She's got decorations all through the library, gravestones and ghosts and spirits and all sorts of stuff in the library. It's a huge event, and it turns out that when she gives her talks, everybody loves it. The whole town is enraptured, and this just makes me want Louise Jane to have her own series even more. Louise Jane in some sort of paranormal cozy mystery series would be just amazing. Eva Gates, please write this series, because I think Louise Jane needs her own series. But of course in this series we have to have a murder, and it's Jay Ruddle, the guy who's got this collection of historic documents. He's found murdered at one of these Halloween events. Everybody's outside the library, or so we think. He went in by himself and he's been looking through the archives of historic documents the library's already got. Someone goes in to check on him and they find him dead, strangled, with one of those ropes, those ropes that block you out from going somewhere, with a private sign or a keep out sign attached. So there are suspects aplenty once more in this series. We have people who didn't like him for business reasons. We've got suspects in his own family. Maybe they've killed him for his money or his collection. We don't know. We've got suspects all over the place. Lucy is dragged in to the mystery. Dragged in by Theodore, because Theodore's got the hots for Julia, who is Jay's granddaughter. Theodore wants Lucy to investigate because Julia becomes one of the suspects. so Lucy kind of thinks she has no choice. And of course, this is a cozy mystery series, so the main character has to be involved. So that's what the whole plot's about, basically. It's about Halloween. It's about Louise Jane with her Halloween events. They're a huge success in the town, and it's about this mystery that Lucy has to solve. In this series, we have quite a few small storylines that go from book to book, maybe cross over 2 or 3 books, not the whole series. One of those storylines is the mayoral race, and that gets concluded at the end of this book. I'm not going to tell you who won. Was it Connor or was it Doug? They both have different ideas about what to do with the town. Connor wants to keep the library open, Doug wants to close it. Who wins that mayoral race? It's quite an important storyline, even though it's a small storyline in this series. But I'm glad that this author doesn't keep things like that dragging on too long in the series. They reach a conclusion quite quickly, because there are some book series around that could go on for 10 or more books, and they had the same storyline going right through. And one series I'm thinking about is Janet Evanovich. Her Stephanie Plum series with that love triangle between the main character and 2 guys that she's interested in, that goes from book 1 right through to book 20 something. And that just gets maddening. You don't want that when you're reading a series. You want those kind of storylines to just have a nice conclusion, go on for a few books, reach a conclusion, have something happen maybe later on, start all over again if you need to, but don't keep them going from book 1 right through the series. That's just maddening for a reader. I want to talk about some of the characters in this series that aren't huge in the book series. They're kind of in the background a lot. They might come to the forefront every now and then, but they're not major characters, and not even major in the supporting cast in the book series as well. The first is Theodore, or Teddy. Now he's a rare book dealer. He doesn't seem very good at his job because he always seems out of money, and he always seems to turn up at these library events when there's free food and drink. He's always there just for a feed, but he's just a good character and so endearing because he tries his hardest to be so charming. He's got some eccentricities as well. So he's in his 30s, but for some reason he wants to pretend he's older. And even though he's born in America, in the Outer Banks area, he wants to pretend that he's British. So he keeps putting on this British accent for people. And it's quite funny in the book series, and people always think about it or mention it. But he keeps going with it. He doesn't seem to stop. And he dresses in like tweed suits and all these, old style British clothes you think that lords and manor would wear. So very eccentric character, very fun, and in the background a bit too much, I think. They should bring him out a bit more in the book series. I want to mention Charlene in this video because Charlene is the academic librarian who works in the Lighthouse Library. She is in the background a lot, but in this book, because it involves those historic documents, she comes to the forefront a bit because that's her speciality, and I find that she's a great character. She has some really good one-liners. Unfortunately, they're at the expense of Louise Jane, my main character, but they're still fun, and I just love the way they kind of roll off Louise Jane's back anyway. Louise Jane doesn't really care what people think of her, but Charlene is a really good character in this series. The last character I'll mention is Mrs. Peterson. And Mrs. Peterson is quite fun. She's a very, very small character in this series, has very small roles. But the reason she's so fun is she's got 5 daughters, and they range in ages, I think, from about 6 or 7 to mid-teens. She's so protective of her daughters, and she thinks they're all geniuses. She thinks they're all reading above their level. She wants the child librarian in the library to give them challenging books to read all the time. But then there are scenes where she drags her daughters, and sometimes the older daughters, along to different events in the lighthouse. And sometimes there's teenage boys there, and her teenage girls have eyes on these teenage boys, and you always see looks between them, and the teenage boys and teenage girls will try to sit next to each other and edge closer to each other, and Mrs. Peterson has none of that. She will move her daughters from seat to seat to get them away from boys. She'll do everything in her power to make sure that her girls don't get involved with the boys that she doesn't want them to be involved in. And it's so fun to watch because it's almost like, when you think about those old southern mothers and families where the daughters have to be kind of hidden away and protected, and they come out in their debutante ball or their coming out party or whatever they have, and then they're introduced to society. You get the feeling that that's what Mrs. Peterson wants for her daughters. but you also get the feeling that when her daughters get of age or old enough to escape the house and meet boys on their own, that's not going to happen. The daughters are going to have their own way in the end, I think. And I think Mrs. Peterson is in for the shock of her life. This book series just goes from strength to strength. And it's all because of the characters. I don't care at this stage about the mystery. Mystery can be good, bad, brilliant. It can be mediocre. I don't really care. I want the characters to stay as they are in this series, even get better. Louise Jane, of course, the best character in this series and the best character I've read for a long time. Even the smaller characters that we don't see very often in the series, like Mrs. Peterson, just another brilliant character, because even though we only get small parts of her in the book series, I feel like every time she's in the scene, I know so much about her and I can picture her as well. The characters are brilliant, and for that I rate this book a 4.5 out of 5. I did rate it a 4 on Goodreads because you can't do 0.5s, but this book is just superb. Mainly because Louise Jane is just almost given the spotlight for the whole book because of her Halloween events. But also the other characters, as they're just appearing more and more, I'm just getting the best impression of all of them. I just can picture all of them in my mind. And they're starting to feel like friends and family in a way. And that's a really good feeling you get. If you're reading a series like this and you get that feeling about the characters, it means the author's doing the best job they can. If you don't want to miss out on future books in this series, check out my channel and subscribe. I've also done reviews on books 1 to 3. Why not give those a watch as well? I do review other cozy mystery books on my channel. Check out the cozy mystery playlist. You should see it on your screen now.